Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Mind Your Business show. Today, you're here with Ash.
And Tommy.
And we have an amazing guest for you this episode, this series of episodes. His name is Michael Chua, right? Michael. And Michael is an award winning and seasoned actor, writer, producer, director, and a digital tech consultant. So his career spans the entertainment and technology industry, something that you wouldn't really put two and two together, but we'll definitely get into that. With nearly 40 years of experience, Michael has lived and worked in over 19 countries across 4 continents, serving banks, big tech companies, and government organizations. And he's also founded 2 businesses in the APAC region. One of Michael's notable achievements includes personally managing a high-profile cyber attack, effectively restoring operations to business as usual. Several of the films where he plays a lead role in definitely well received with over 30 million views online. Michael's definitely a guy with a lot of experience as a trainer and coach in both educational institutions and in the corporate world. Right now, Michael is an adjunct lecturer at the University of Newcastle NSW Singapore campus and advisor to several tech startups. Michael, thank you so much for being part of the show. Welcome.
Thank you.
Right.
Brilliant.
So as usual, before we dive into like your whole career, like we want to take it back to the start, right? So you were born and raised in Singapore,
Yes.
right? So what was the journey like as a Singaporean, and what were your aspirations when you were younger?
I think I was lucky. I was born earlier than both of you, I think. And those days, life was less structured.
Right.
Expectations lesser. As my parents are pretty chill in that they just want us to finish university or finish even poly and find a job, and that's it.
Right.
Not much high expectations. And when I told them I was going overseas to study, they were very happy actually that I took the initiative to do that. The fees weren't very high those days.
Okay.
And I did that, and I worked there as well in Australia.
Was it common during the period, like among your peers, for you all to go overseas and study, or were you someone who's like...
No, although it was easier, was cheaper, then it was still not common because the disposable income among Singaporeans were much lower.
Yep.
And the Australian dollar, believe it or not, was 2.5, 2.7.
Oh, yeah, it was way higher than
way
days,
higher.
Right?
So a cup of coffee at $2.50.
Right.
You multiply by 2.
Like
so
$5-6.
We even had to contemplate long and hard before we even buy a cup of coffee those days. Yeah, and waiting in restaurants don't pay a lot. I was lucky. I never had to wait in restaurant because at some point I was able to convince a local software house to hire me as a programmer.
Wow.
Okay. So in those days, programming and all this was not very big, right? What was your attraction to go overseas in the first place? Like, why do you say that I don't want to study in Singapore, I want to do my university overseas?
I think it was some gloomy National Service Day where we were
we all go through,
when I was counting my days towards, we call ROD, run out date. Then among ourselves, we were talking about what if we just apply to some universities, maybe we can get disruption.
Okay.
So we applied that, we didn't get it.
Okay.
We did not get the disruption, and we eventually have to wait out the entire 2.5 years.
Back then,
And then that's that. You get accepted already, so you don't want to turn back as well. Because it seems like an opportunity lost. Because those days, not everybody can get qualified to enter university. Nowadays, literally everybody. Everybody.
I think it's easier to find someone with a degree than without a degree now.
It's just a ranking of the university that makes the difference. But anybody now can get into a university. Those days, no.
What were the qualifications needed, like to do? I think you did a computing bachelor's, or
no, my first degree was in civil engineering.
Oh wow!
Okay.
Then before I graduated, I got a job as a programmer writing software for the geometric design of roads.
Okay.
When the road curve and
Right,
super
right.
elevate and all
Mhm.
that,
Yep.
you need some coordinates for the
Okay.
engineers to plot. And I was writing software to do
So
that.
it's still related to
To
civil
civil
engineering.
It's related. Now you have
Yeah.
to understand the meaning of transitional curve and super elevation.
Yeah.
And how things are constructed and all that to make sense.
Was that your first array into computing? Or
Professionally, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Of course, we learn in university.
Mm-hmm.
Those days we learn Fortran.
Yeah.
Right.
So on my own initiative, I got to learn C language, which was a big thing those
Yeah,
days.
I think that
Mhm.
very few people had
Yeah.
the experience.
So that one thing led to another, and when I graduated, I got a job in BHP, Broken Hill Proprietary, which is a mineral company. In the steel mills, they were converting their steel production system from ingot casting to continuous bloom casting.
Mhm.
So ingot casting means like you have a cup, you fill in the molten iron. After that,
Yeah.
you extract
Right.
the molten iron,
Mhm.
but there must be a cup holding it.
Yeah.
Whereas continuous bloom is there's a slope,
Mm.
and they just pour the molten iron on the slope, and it flows down and then
Right.
they just cut in the
Right,
bars.
right.
It's more efficient. So the entire production system, how you measure things, was changed. So we wrote that system. It was very exciting for a first timer programmer in that you program things from scratch. There's no SAP and database and all that. You program everything from scratch. So there was the joy of craft. And that has lured me to think, should I go to civil engineering or programming? And at that point, I think it was a rational decision to go into programming.
Right.
Mm.
How about what I've heard about Australia is that they are quite racist, right, towards people who are not Australian. Right? In those days, was it quite still common?
Newcastle, definitely not.
Okay.
Newcastle is a very small town, and that's why the few of us Singaporeans chose to go to Newcastle, because we are already in a big city here, and we prefer to go in a small town where I don't think they are racist. You meet some racists, but generally not. At work, I haven't experienced racism at all at work.
Right.
They have a different behavior and culture in that they don't respect your position you hold. They don't care about your position.
Right.
You're managing director, manager, whatever. They don't care,
Mm.
but they respect you as a person.
Yep.
So if you go around ordering around, that's the end of you.
Right.
So it's a very different culture. And when I graduated from civil engineer, there was some consideration to become a civil engineer. So I went for some interviews, and they say that first you must be a site engineer. We don't take people from university and sit in air-conditioned room and interpret drawings.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had to go to the site. Then I was thinking, I probably don't understand the Australian mindset at that point, and now I probably can. I probably can't understand it. And how am I going to be a site engineer supervising the tradesmen?
Yep.
So I didn't do that. And besides, I think programming was an easier transition. I'll still be in an aircon room,
Yeah.
Right.
facing the computer. And to a techie nerd like I was, it was an escapism from the real world, where the better you are in programming, the more control you have over your lives, and the more you can ignore other people. So I was quite nerdy in that sense, and I just went deeper into it. As I did that, I became better and better programmer. My productivity was easily 3 times that of the Australian at the next table.
Right. So what was the consideration of working in Australia versus coming back to Singapore? And
Singapore that time was hardly developed. There was no programming jobs.
right.
At that time they didn't even know how to write a job spec. Yeah, that was how bad they write.
So what, 10 years of experience when it's a new technology?
No, they don't even
like
know how. They don't even know how to describe what the job is. Remember those days? There's no internet. There's no a lot of tools that you can develop these specs.
Yeah.
If you want to write a spec, it's from your brain and your finger and your pen, and that was not developed at all.
Yep.
These days, you can ask ChatGPT, you can
Yeah.
develop
Yeah.
a job spec for you, right? Those
Yeah.
days, none of this can
Yep.
happen. Either or you don't know. And I saw in the newspapers that they classify as they have really very naive job specs, and it doesn't give me a warm feeling to
Yep.
come back at that time.
Even if you took the civil engineering route, you were not planning to come back at that point?
Australia was very attractive for a young man at that time, right? The weather was great. Cars were dirt cheap.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bought my first car at 690 US Aussie dollars.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it breaks down sometime because those days cars do break down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nowadays cars are very reliable. So I learned how to repair cars, how to take care of old cars. It has to be taken care like an old lady. Yeah, you check the oil and the water every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Balance the wheels because they go out of balance very quickly and so on. The weather was great. Lots of open space. You can play cricket or rugby or anything you want during weekend.
Yeah.
There's nobody asking you to come back for overtime.
Right.
That was quite attractive. And Australians are very easygoing. Where I was in Newcastle, they were very easygoing.
So when you do come back to visit at that point when you were working in Australia,
When I started working, yeah.
then when you're sitting there with your peers and you're talking about your job, was there a lot of jealousy from your peers? Wow, your life sounds so good. Whereas in Singapore at that point, I'm sure that the 9 to 5 had already started. Everybody is slaving.
I think at that point, Singaporeans were less traveled than now, and they were very naive. They'll be saying very it's binary, very binary about things. They'll be saying that, wow, good lah, same job, more money.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's
okay.
not same job. It's
Yeah,
not same
yeah,
job. They
yeah.
were not doing programming.
Yeah.
Mm.
They
Which
call it
didn't exist.
systems manager and all those
Right.
flowery names. But what they did was to buy a software, supervise the installation. They don't even have to install it themselves
Yeah.
and use it.
Mhm.
And they're called senior systems engineer with 2 years experience in the field.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas I was developing software from scratch, designing it, testing it, and so on.
Yeah.
So it was a huge difference.
Yep. Yep.
And after the first few times, then you stop arguing with them.
Did you
laugh,
try
right?
to get
Yeah.
your buddies to come over? No.
So at the point you were in Australia, there was no game plan to come back to Singapore. You were planning to stay in Australia for the foreseeable.
There was no game plan, but my mother got a bit upset after 2 years. So I came back and I got very upset. It just cannot. I was so behind. And then I got letters from some agents based in UK and say, come over to UK.
Right.
And being very naive again, I said, okay, let's go.
How do you get the context for?
When I was in Australia, there were some computing magazines and all that. I wrote to them, and they being salesmen and agents, yeah, no problems. I'll get you a job. No, you have 2 years of this and C programming, no problem.
Yeah.
And I believed them.
Okay.
And that was, as a fortunate ignorance that led to better things.
Right. So the next, after Australia, back in Singapore, and then the next part was UK.
Yeah, UK.
Where do you say it's naive? What was your experience?
London is way lot harder city than Newcastle or even Sydney. London is dirty. There are vagrants around. There are tricksters. Yeah, and weather is nasty. Food is horrible. Right? So it's a lot tougher city than Australia. And of course, when I was in Australia, I thought London probably the same, right? English-speaking Caucasian country.
And they're like, at the point, they were the superpowers and forward thinkers of everything.
Yeah. Then I thought, okay, go. Since the agency, I sure can get a job. Actually, the day before I left, I called the agent. I said, what are the chances that I can get a job?
Okay.
He said, it depends on how you perform in the interview. Yeah.
Wow. So you were traveling to UK without knowing whether you were...
job. And even those jobs, I was not aiming for a permanent job because the contractor freelance job paid a lot more.
Okay.
And it served my purpose of wanting to travel the world for yet another 2 years. That was the plan at the time.
Right.
And it didn't end in 2 years because I started to earn more and more money.
Okay.
And travel to more and more places. So from London, I went to Bath, I went to Lancaster, I went to Brussels, I went to Holland,
Okay.
The Hague, yeah, and then back to Brussels, then to Luxembourg, then to Germany, Hungary, and
Right.
then flew to Hong Kong. Then at that time, I was in my 30s. You feel like a superhero.
Yeah, because you're always traveling, you're living the life.
You're living the life. You're always traveling, and you feel that you're always in demand.
Right.
And then you felt good because you're earning money. It was hard to be an independent consultant because now your name card only has your name.
Yeah.
Doesn't have IBM embossed on it or
Right.
Oracle embossed.
Right.
It's a huge difference. I'm telling you, huge difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you have a big name behind you, talk to my manager. Don't be nasty, and they'll be afraid because you are a big company as well.
Right,
Oracle,
right.
IBM, and all those companies, they will be big. For me, talk to who? Talk to me. So you have to be very streetwise quickly to defend yourself and position yourself and to avoid being bullied and so on. Yeah.
So the whole Europe stint right before Hong Kong, what was the most interesting place in Europe?
Hungary. Because Budapest was just liberated from communism.
Okay.
And you can see the remnants of communism there.
Okay.
I visited those Eastern Bloc countries when they were full communist. And when I went to Budapest, then there were still remnants of this scarcity. Grown adults peering into the glass window of shops, looking at boxy small televisions, which they cannot even touch.
Okay.
And definitely can't afford.
Yeah.
And that was those days. And a lot of nasty corruption. The police will be stopping you. You're in your car and you make, no matter you do a U-turn, straight turn, any turn, they'll stop you. No, you have offended something. Can I have your license? I say, why do you want my license? What rule have I broken? You have broken a rule, or I'll take your car.
Wow.
Then I said, no, you can't take my car. Okay, you don't want to have a fine, right? You pay me some Deutschmarks. I said, we don't have Deutschmarks. You come to Budapest without Deutschmarks? No, we have the Budapest money, but no Deutschmark. For some reason, they are more scared to take Budapest money. Yeah.
Okay. Was there a reason?
Maybe the value also was depreciating very fast, so they want a hard currency. Then they were very frustrated, saying, well, do you have Coca-Cola?
Are you serious? Wow.
Wow.
I said, we don't have Coca-Cola.
A can of Coke okay.
So to them, a can of Coke is symbolic of freedom.
Wow,
Very
that's so
stupid,
cool.
But that's what happened. So
I can't imagine bribing someone with a can of Coke.
That was an interesting experience with the police. But the people are another surprise because I think the Eastern Bloc countries those days were very well educated. They are just poor of money, but they are not poor of knowledge.
Yeah.
Their culture, their appreciation for music and all that, fantastic. I have this taxi driver picking me up in his old Russian Lada, and he was asking, sir, do you read books? Huh? And I said, yeah, Windows 98. They were really cultured. Yeah, and at some point they also said, tonight you have nothing to do. I said, oh, he's touting already. Tonight nothing to do, don't bring me around. No, he was telling me where are the concerts. And the way I knew nothing. He was describing the differences of the concerts to me.
Yeah. So was it because of the fact that they left communism and then they were trying to upgrade themselves? Or?
No, communism, conversely, communism feels that the arts will take you away from the spiritual pollution of capitalism.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And if you are a suspected rebel in their system, they will put you into a degree that is engineering and science and all that. You won't go into the arts.
Okay.
So back those days, there were secret meetings in pubs where they will drink wine or drink whiskey or beer and talk about revolution.
Wow.
And then if you can't exercise a revolution, you make it into a play.
Yeah, it was their way of...
Which is why they keep the rebels in science fields, maybe. You don't have the audience and the voice.
You don't have the training to... But they would learn all this art.
Yeah.
They were very cultured.
Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this episode. More of Michael next week on the Mind Your Business show.